Hi friends! Today we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and it's probably one of your favorite topics too, and that is money. I love talking about money, and today in this video we're going to talk about some money mindset shifts to help you go from being poor to living to paycheck to living in financial abundance. Just keep in mind, this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my story and what worked for me, and hopefully it will work for you too. Let's get started. Okay, so let me get this straight. All I have to do is think about money in a positive way, and I'm gonna be abundant, whatever, yeah, right. I thought that was crazy too. And I just happened to be in a course and I happened to be doing the homework and things started changing for me. And I thought it was crazy, but it's actually not. And I actually have chills talking about this because it worked for me. And so it's really simple. There's 3 steps, but just because they sound simple, don't take it for granted that it's not going to work, because it worked for me. We're going to want to dive into the money mindset shifts, but let's just get a quick background really quickly. So if you're like me, you didn't grow up with a very healthy idea surrounding money. And some of the things that I would tell myself over and over is that I'm too poor, I'm broke, I can't afford that. Everybody else can be rich, but not me. That's not meant for me. These are just some of the things that I would constantly be telling myself all the time. But I realized I needed to actually start changing that, because that actually wasn't my truth. So if you've caught yourself saying those things, you're not alone, because I've said those things myself. I remember when I was laid off of my job in 2012, and I had just gone through a divorce, and I had to move into a 400 square foot apartment in Hawaii. That was all I could afford, and I was living there at the time. And it's really expensive to live there. And I remember just telling myself, there's no way that I'll get out of debt. So when I divorced, I took on all of the debt that we had just to be done with everything. And I remember calling my mom, and I was crying, and I was telling her, there's no way that I'll ever get out of this debt. There's no way. I'm just going to be living paycheck to paycheck my entire life, and this is just my life now. And I remember her telling me, just keep going, Kristen, just keep going. You will eventually get out of debt. It was funny because I had gotten out of debt. It really didn't take me as long as I thought it would, but then I got myself back into debt. So I moved to Washington State. I got an amazing job, and I got myself right back in. And it was the second time that I had got myself into debt. I started thinking, okay, there's no excuse for me to be back where I was. This doesn't make any sense to me. And so I recognized that there was a pattern there. It wasn't until I started to work on my mindset around money that things started to change, and I was able to get out of debt. And I'll probably explain money mindset shifting as kind of like going to therapy, because you're going to have to start at the beginning. You're going to have to work through some things, and then you'll finally see a light at the end of the tunnel. Step number 1 is you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Where did your money mindset come from? Because what you're going to find out when you start doing this homework is that your money mindset did not come from you. Your money mindset probably started when you were pretty young, probably 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 years old, and you probably learned it from your parents. Which is what I realized when I was doing my own homework. I had to evaluate, how does my dad see money? How does my mom see money? What did I learn from them? Who else was around me influencing me and telling me that money doesn't grow on trees, and there's reasons why we can't have nice things, or that we're broke, or that we can't afford something. So go back in time and figure out, what are some of your earliest money memories? What did you learn? What were you taught? What did you hear? And chances are you've carried that into your adulthood, which is why I say this is like therapy, because you have to go back to the beginning, go back to the drawing board, figure out where it came from. You have to kind of dig everything up, and then you can actually start to work through things. So once you figure out where your money mindset came from, the next step, we can actually do some things to start to change that. As you're going through that process, write down your thoughts about money. What are your current thoughts about money that you learned from when you were a child? So some of the things that I wrote down was that I was broke, or that I'm poor all the time, or that I'll always be in debt. Those were the money mindsets that I was holding on to. That explained, to me at least, why I was going through this pattern of get out of debt, get into debt, get out of debt, get into debt. And it just didn't make sense to me. And then I realized, okay, if my mindset is telling me that I'm always broke and I'm always poor, anytime that I would get any kind of money my way, I would just find reasons to spend it. And it didn't make sense. I would just, oh, I have money left over. Let me just spend it on something. And it didn't even have to be meaningful at all. I would go out and use my credit cards and think, oh, I can just pay this off later. So it was very poor money habits that I had when I was much younger and didn't even realize that I was setting myself up for my own failure because I wasn't controlling what was up here. As I was writing this down, I felt so uncomfortable. I just felt that there's no way any money could ever come to me, that I would always be broke. And so those were the feelings that I was associating with my poor money mindset, was just feeling uncomfortable around money and feeling like I didn't deserve money and feeling like there's no way that I could ever have enough money to even be abundant. And if you're feeling the same thing, I completely understand because I've been there. Now that you've gone back to the beginning and you know that your money mindset came from when you were a little kid, now you can actually start to change things. So you already know kind of the things that you're telling yourself all the time. And now what you have to do is look for proof. So you're going to go back and start to remember the times where you weren't broke, or you could afford something, or you weren't poor. So this can take a lot of work because your brain has been so used to reaffirming what you're telling yourself is that you're poor and you're broke and you can't afford things. It's gonna take a little bit of work to go back into your mind and into your memories and remember the times where that didn't exist, and you have to find your own proof. Something that I remembered is that I put myself through college. So I remember going to school full time, and I was also working full time. I still am not quite sure how I made it through financially. I have no student loans. Grateful for that. I had no idea student loans were a thing back then. And I would rack up my credit card. I only had a limit of maybe $2,500, and I would pay for school by maxing out my credit card. And then I would go to work, and then I would pay off that card and then do it all over again. So you can see that debt cycle had already started back in college, and I had no other choice. I had no idea that I could get other funding elsewhere. So that's what I was doing. And I remembered thinking that I was broke at the time and that I was really poor and that I couldn't afford things. But then I realized that I could always pick up extra shifts at work. And I did, and I was able to pay off that card in full. I also remembered that I was picking up extra shifts or extra odd jobs on campus, like taking notes for students, for example. So those kinds of memories I had forgotten about and I didn't remember. So when you think back, you might actually surprise yourself about the things that you've already done to prove that you have the ability to do what it takes, so that you aren't poor, you aren't broken, you can afford things. You just don't remember until you go back and try to remember and find proof. So for every item that you had written down that someone told you that became your money mindset, so for example, I'm poor, try to think of proof of a time when you weren't poor and go through for each example for your poor money mindset and find proof that you've already done it that is the opposite, if that makes sense. Once you realize you have so much potential and power inside of you, and you've already done things to show that your poor money mindset is just a story that you're telling yourself every single day, I'm hoping that you choose not to carry around that disempowering mindset anymore, and that you're choosing a new money mindset. So how do you shift that? So you know where it came from, you have proof that you can change things. How do you actually shift it? So this is where we get into step 3. Super, super easy. All you have to do is tell yourself every day that you are wealthy, and that's it. All right, that's it. That's the end of the video. That's it. We're all done. Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I wish it were that simple. It's just not that simple. It's going to take time. And this step I would actually equate to reprogramming. You have to actually reprogram what you'd been telling your mind this whole time. If you're telling yourself that you're poor for a decade, it's going to take a little while to undo the things that you've been telling yourself, because when you're saying I'm poor, everything around you is going to be influencing you that you're poor, and your brain is going to be taking in that information and reconfirming what you already are telling yourself that you believe. So the third step is where it's going to take some time. I do want you to take a few minutes and write down and really think about, what do you want your money mindset to be? What do you want in your life? Not what you don't want. We don't want negative associations for things. We want positive associations. What do you want for your money mindset? What do you want for your money story? For me, I'm a millionaire boss babe in training. That is my goal. And so my money mindset is calling in things that will help lead me to that goal. Some fun questions you can do is, how much money do you want in the bank? What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What kind of vacations do you want to take? What do you deserve when it comes to money? What do you want to do with money? Do you want to leave a legacy for your family and generations? Do you want to start a foundation? What is the goal for you to have all this money? Don't put any limits on yourself. Allow yourself to dream and allow yourself to expand your brain from this limiting mindset that you've had for such a long time. Don't stop yourself and hold yourself back. Just let this be an opportunity to kind of play in a way, because why not? Why wouldn't you deserve it? You do deserve it. And that's the story that I want you to start telling yourself and allowing yourself to have. You have to almost reprogram your subconscious, reprogram your brain, and have it start looking for ways for you to call that into your life. And it's manifesting in a way, but we'll talk about manifesting in another video. This is about money mindset and rewriting those stories that you've had for a very long time. It's gonna feel really weird at first. Your brain's gonna fight you and go, wait a minute, hold up. We've been poor since we were 15. So how come we're abundant now? This is weird. Your brain's gonna do its thing, and you just have to keep reminding it that this is my new story now until you get it down. Your brain's gonna fight you for a little while. That's why I said this is the time where the homework actually starts, because you'll have to write it down in a place where you can see it every day. You'll have to say it to yourself every single day. Every time you tell yourself, well, I can't afford that, I'm poor, you have to tell yourself a different story and say, I'm abundant even if I don't have that thing or whatever it is, and start shifting your mindset in that way. And a really fast trick to doing this that I did myself, and this is going to sound really silly, but just go with me and just try it and see if it works for you, is come up with a money mantra. Okay, what is a money mantra? A money mantra is a positive sentence, usually it's very short, that allows you to start reprogramming your brain. So a money mantra that I have is, I'm wealthy and abundant and money flows to me easily. It's just really simple. It's just a really simple sentence that you come up with, or you can Google it if you want to, and just find something that sounds good to you, that makes sense to you, that feels good to you. Because if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't make sense, it's not going to work for you. It has to feel right. If you're not sure and that doesn't feel good to you, I call money in easily, I attract money easily, you can put learning in front of that and say, I am learning to be abundant with money. I am learning to be abundant. I am learning to be wealthy. I am learning to have money flow to me easily. And that can feel a little bit better, especially since this is probably a new step for you. Take your time and find something that feels really good for you. And something that I like to do is I'll put it as a screensaver. I'll screenshot it and I'll put it as a screensaver on my phone, because you want to see it every single day. You want your brain to see it every single day. You want your eyes to see it every single day. You want to say it every single day. Eventually, what will start to happen is your brain will start to see wealth and abundance and money all around you. I mean, you're not going to be able to get away from it. This worked for me, and I can't promise that it'll work for you, but all I can do is just say try it and see if it works for you, because it worked for me. The only debt that I have today is my mortgage. That's it. I have multiple savings accounts. I have an investment accounts, and I have multiple retirement accounts now. So this worked for me. I don't see poor anymore. I don't live paycheck to paycheck anymore. But once you realize that you have that pattern, go revisit it and figure out where it came from, figure out proof of why that pattern is not correct, and then work on your own money mindset on how you're going to shift that. Develop a mantra to help you so that you're not constantly stuck in this cycle that I know you want to get out of and you can't figure out why you're stuck in that cycle. Try this and see if it works. That's it. If you haven't seen Millionaire Habits for Women, you're going to want to check out this video next, and I'll see you next week.